So I just recorded a video talking a little bit about Friedrich Nietzsche and the history of philosophy in the Western world. And the leitmotif of that video really was questioning, why do we think of the progress of philosophy as if it were the progress of science, when in so many ways it's more like show business? There is a vegan activist network is the word they use, called Direct Action Everywhere. And a most remarkable thing has happened just within the last 2 weeks. They changed their whole methodology and they started uploading videos to YouTube that are, from my perspective, garbage content. They started uploading videos of cute cats and cute piglets and cute cows. One of the videos is, it's a cow cuddling with a kitten. There's another one that's a baby human cuddling with a piglet. This kind of crap. All right? Now, the unique claim of DxE, of Direct Action Everywhere, when they came into the game here, was that their methods, their ideology of effective activism was based on science. Was that they alone, unlike other vegan groups, animal rights groups, that they had learned the lessons of the social sciences. That's how they would put it. Now, quite a few people have questioned this or even ridiculed it. The long book review discussion I did with Mod Vegan, we mentioned in there that Gary Francione really ridicules Direct Action Everywhere. And Gary Francione really says, look, they say what they're doing is based on science. When you look into the science, it's not, even though these are the social sciences. And Gary Francione is right about that. Unfortunately, the same criticism also applies to Francione himself. There's a lot of that criticism to go around. But on some level, look, some questions can be answered by science and some cannot. What is Shakespeare's greatest play? If you're hosting a Shakespearean festival and you've got to choose which plays you're going to perform and which ones are not, which play is going to reach an audience, which place is socially relevant and meaningful to perform today, it's not a scientific question. It's not going to have a scientific answer. And whether you're talking about political activism or lobbying or street protests, I think we actually get into a lot of questions that are closer to the arts, closer to the creative arts, maybe closer to literature than they are to science. And yet, Direct Action Everywhere, they started off by claiming they had this unique methodology that was so much better than everyone else because it was based on science, and they felt that they had drawn these objectively true and real conclusions from their very selective and one-sided study of history, completely cynical misrepresentation of a few figures from history like Mohandas Gandhi, little bits and pieces of the U.S. struggle to abolish slavery, misrepresented and cherry-picked, and whatever. And we come up with this methodology. And anyway, others have already pointed out the use they made of social science research is laughable if you actually have a background in social sciences, which I do. My first university diploma is in political science. And from my perspective, what starts as science ends as religion for many of these political organizations. For Direct Action Everywhere, if you want to be a part of their little group that in some ways is quite cult-like, you simply have to accept as a tenet of faith that what they say is effective activism is effective. Effective activism ceases to be something empirical, ceases to be something you try out and test and evaluate and tinker with in the real world. It becomes a principle of faith that all members of the group have to subscribe to. I don't even say that with any hatred in my heart. But then you see this. The other, aspect of Direct Action Everywhere that was discussed in my earlier podcast, over an hour long with Mod Vegan. Right off the bat, I point out, look, groups like Direct Action Everywhere, they make all these sacrifices to get their name into the newspaper. For them, that's in reality the main focus of their activism. They do outrageous things. Sometimes they do criminal things. Sometimes they're facing criminal charges for their protests, for their activism, just to get their name in the headlines, just to get their name in the newspaper. And they feel they've had a big success when their disruptions get their name in the news, because that's their idea of effective activism, are these disruptions. Okay? And now, nobody wants to hear it. They have no audience. Nobody wants to hear what they have to say. Remarkably, my videos, including my really boring videos, reach a larger audience than theirs on YouTube, even though they're doing things that are in the newspaper. What I say is not being covered in the newspaper. I'm not going out and breaking into barns. I'm not running onto the sports field in a baseball game to try to disrupt the baseball game. I'm not showing up at a Bernie Sanders event and jumping the fence. This is the stuff they do to disrupt Bernie Sanders talking to the crowd or whatever. I find their methods totally immature and totally risible and totally ineffective. But again, if you join their group, it becomes a barrier to entry. It becomes a principle of faith. You have to believe that what they're doing is effective, right? And you believe that it's based on this ridiculous interpretation of history and this ridiculous selective reading of the social sciences. But of course, it's not a science. Of course, what are you going to say to me? What is your scientific basis for believing that jumping over the barrier to interrupt Bernie Sanders and being immediately pounced on by his security guards, nobody heard the vegan message, that's more effective than running a vegan hot dog stand? You could do a great form of activism. You have a vegan hot dog stand. You don't tell people it's vegan. I talked about this ages and ages ago in a podcast on the channel. A hot dog stand or hamburger stand. Give it a great name. Call it Dead Cow. Dead Cow hamburgers. And maybe afterwards they eat the burger, and in the bottom of the container there's a note saying, hey, just so you know, no animals were harmed in making this burger. At Dead Cow Burger, we're actually proud to be giving you a vegan hamburger. Be a beautiful form of activism. Doesn't disrupt anything. So there were so many. It's like I say, it's the creative arts. I just wrote a children's book in Chinese and English. I'm talking to illustrators. It's art. It's literature. I'm not saying it's high art. Whatever. It's a children's storybook. Getting those ideas across. And obviously, you can come on YouTube and make music videos. You could dance and sing. You could do a puppet show. There are so many forms of creative activism. But no, they think that science proves that their method is the effective one. Okay, well, I think on some level, it's just serendipity, it's just a coincidence. At the same time that I had this conversation with Mod Vegan, drawing attention to the fact that they knock themselves out, they sometimes get themselves brought into court, they're sometimes facing criminal charges, they're doing all this edgy stuff just to promote themselves. But despite all that promotion, despite having the name of the press, I'm looking at videos here that have had 89 views, 172 views, 169 views. Nobody wants to hear it. Nobody respects their opinion. Nobody is interested, right? And some of these videos, remember, the number of people involved already gets you a certain number of views. So they have a bunch of activists doing a disruption. It's not even worth describing. The friends and family of the people who were in the video, that's already maybe 300 people. If you have 20 people participating in making a video, each of them post it on their own Facebook page and send it to their parents and their friends from university, that already is 300 views. If 20 people make a video, you should have 300 views. And these guys are scraping incredibly low numbers. I did a book review on Rules for Radicals, nothing to do with veganism. I got 1,000 views in 2 or 3 days. I'm deeply grateful to my audience for that, by the way. I respect the hell out of my audience for watching that kind of video. Just straight up political science talk about a meaningful book, But here's the twist. Just 2 weeks ago, Direct Action Everywhere throw out their own rule book, throw out their own philosophy, throw out all the lessons of science and history and all this bullshit about the abolition of slavery, and they start posting cute kitten videos, cute cow videos, cute baby pig videos. Is that what people signed up for when they joined DxE? Was the argument supposed to be that the social sciences prove That the way to advance veganism is showing a baby playing with a piglet on a fluffy pink carpet? Are you fucking kidding me? This is what all your intellectual pretensions boil down to, is that when you aren't getting the attention you wanted by doing your bullshit disruptions, you resort to other methods of getting attention. Doesn't this just reveal that all that nonsense about Mohandas Gandhi fighting against the British Empire in India, about the American Civil War, about the abolition of slavery, about social science research vindicating this method you made up in your own minds? What it all boils down to is you want attention. And when you don't get that attention that you're screaming for, literally screaming for, filming yourself screaming at strangers in a restaurant, this kind of nonsense. When you don't get it, you resort to cute piglet videos, cute kitten videos. You resort to the lowest common denominator of what you see getting views on Facebook. Direct action everywhere. At this point, I've got to say, shame on you. You guys came out and you did debates with other people. You debated Gary Francione. You've heard criticism, but you have failed to respond to that criticism by actually improving what it is you do. And I'll just say in closing, I don't want to see you guys fail. I think you're wrong and misguided, and what you're doing is counterproductive. But you got to remember, I'm a vegan who wants to make the world a better place. I would love to see anyone succeeding at this game. But my role is not to gas you up, kid. My role is not to pat you on the back and say you're fighting the good fight when you're fighting it all wrong. Okay? You're not going to make the world a better place sitting in a steel cage in a prison cell. You're not, and for that reason, you're not going to make the world a better place breaking the law, filming yourself breaking the law, and putting that video on the internet. Where I come from, that's called dry snitching. And, you know, I'm not criticizing you for my sake. But, man, I think any of you guys in DxE, if this ever was a project that in principle was open-minded and empirical, learning from experience, learning the lessons of history, learning the lessons of the social sciences, why did you stop learning? Because I think you can still turn this around. I think you could still improve the organization you've already got. But you've got to stop what you're doing, learn from the experience you've already had in the last 3 years, learn the lessons of your own experience. If you want to learn from the social sciences, go back to the drawing board, go back to history, learn some new lessons from history, different from what you've done, and take it in a new direction. It's a lot easier to reform a bad institution than to start a new institution from scratch. Enough said.